Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing our Yuan clan of Runan Let's Talk Lore series with part 2, titled Yuan's Legacy. Now, before we jump back into our story, there is something I would like to correct from our previous episode, as someone expertly pointed out in the comment section that Yuan Liang from this family tree is not actually from the Yuan clan of Chen, which means that the Yuan clan of Runan and the Yuan clan of Chen are actually not related in any capacity, aside from the fact that both of these clans share the same family name. Now, the reason for this confusion stems from the fact that both of these prestigious clans had someone named Yuan Liang with the exact same characters. But after exploring some additional source material regarding Yuan Liang from the Chen clan, it's pretty clear that these two Yuan Liangs are actually two separate individuals and not the same person. The source that I had originally used, dating from the Tang Dynasty, confused them as well as the same individual. But the recent discovery of a Chen clan stone tablet, very similar to the one for Yuanan that's shown on the thumb art, will clearly show that they are not the same person, as the two of them lived in different time periods and held different offices throughout their career. Simply put, Yuan Liang from the Yuan clan of Chen is recorded to be the great-grandfather of Yuan Huan, who was a contemporary of the Three Kingdoms period, and actually the first general that you will fight against when playing as Cao Cao in the 190 start in the game Total War Three Kingdoms, while Yuan Liang from the Runan branch, which is featured here, is the great-great-great-great-grandfather of Yuan Shao and Yuan Shu. So clearly, these two Yuan did not coexist in the same time period, and it's clearly not the same person, which eliminates any linkage between these two prestigious Yuan clans, making them separate clans rather than a cadet and main branch relationship. Now, regardless of this rectification, our story will continue here as we pick up with Yuan, who, after a decade of diligent service as the administrator of the capital province, followed by his promotion to minister coachman before finally ascending to become the Grand Excellency under Emperor Liu Da. However, just a short 6 months after his promotion, Yuan would see his enlightened emperor, who had been so open to these court debates, pass away suddenly at the young age of 33. Leaving the throne behind to his fourth son, Liu Zhao, who was only 9 years old at this time. Now, it's not that the emperor didn't have any suitable older heirs. As a matter of fact, his firstborn and thirdborn were both alive at this time, but neither of them were made heir, because neither of them had the favor of the empress. And this empress in particular is Empress Dou, who had helped raise the fourth son, Liu Zhao, as her own, since she did not have any biological sons herself. And here is where the Eastern Han Dynasty started to show early signs of decline, as the power of the emperor started to slip as these in-law regents started to take control of the government. In this instance, Empress Dowager Dou naturally became the regent following Emperor Liu Da's sudden death, and if we take a look at her clan's past as well as her actions at court, we can see how damaging the Dou clan is to the Eastern Han Dynasty at this point. First off, their clan patriarch, the great-grandfather of Empress Dowager Dou, Dou Rong, had been a Grand Excellency and a warlord during Wang Mang's Xin Dynasty, which broke up the Western and Eastern Han. But when things started to look dire for the Xin Dynasty, Dou Rong promptly defected alongside his army to join the Eastern Han. And since the Eastern Han would eventually restore themselves as the continuing dynasty for the Han Empire, his defection will earn their clan immense political capital in this newly recovered dynasty. But Dou Rong's sons and grandsons would squander this goodwill through corrupt and illegal ventures at court, and would see most of themselves imprisoned or executed for their crimes. And indeed, by the time Lady Dou came of age, her clan was pretty much irrelevant, as her father had already been executed for crimes committed at court. However, due to their family's glorious past and connections made through that past, as well as her beauty and her education, Lady Dou, alongside her younger sister, were both selected to become ladies-in-waiting for the imperial court, or basically potential brides who were moved to the imperial palace to be hand-trained by the Empress Dowager at the time, which is Empress Dowager Ma, to see if anyone can become suitable wives for the young emperor. Once inside the court, Lady Dou was able to butter up Empress Dowager Ma, as rumors of her beauty and talent for literature soon spread to the ears of the emperor. Soon, both of the Lady Dous would become the emperor's consort, and despite the fact that Consort Dou would not be able to produce a son for the emperor, she still managed to lock down his love, as her words and charm soon captivated the emperor. And even with this love, Consort Dou knew that if she did not have a son under her name, her future within the imperial court is not cemented. So she grew increasingly jealous of Empress Song, who had given birth to Emperor Liu Da's third son, Liu Qing, who was currently the crown prince, and Consort Liang, who had given birth to the emperor's fourth son, Liu Zhao. So, exploiting her charms, Consort Dou soon managed to convince the emperor that Empress Song was practicing witchcraft, which was a major taboo within the palace and a valid cause for severe punishment. Unable to explain herself, Empress Song was soon forced to commit suicide, and because of this blemish, her son, the crown prince, was also forced to relinquish his claim on the throne. But even with the empress killed, Consort Dou still did not have a son to her name. So she then turned her attention to Consort Liang, who had a young son who was going to be next in line after the crown prince relinquished his title. So this time, Consort Dou, with the help of her 4 brothers, who had been receiving government posts throughout her time as a consort, they together managed to frame Consort Liang's father, who had also been a small government official at this time, of a major crime through an anonymous letter aiming to frame him. And without a proper trial, her father was sentenced to death by the emperor. Heartbroken by the death of her father at the hands of her husband, Consort Liang would die of depression not long after, leaving behind a baby boy, which the emperor soon handed to Consort Dou to be raised as her own, as Consort Dou was also elevated now to the empty position of empress, and her new son, the 4th son Liu Zhao, was named the new crown prince. So knowing her backstory here, you can understand how ambitious, cruel, and ruthless Empress Dowager Dou can be, and also how she might not completely trust this son of hers, as she soon made herself the regent to her young son's reign, while her 4 brothers were also quickly elevated into key government posts in order to completely control the young emperor. First, her oldest brother, Dou Xian, was made into Shizhong, which is essentially the head secretary of the imperial court. Now, this is not a highly ranked job, but a central job and a critical post because he is now in charge of handling all the reports that are being sent to the emperor by the imperial court, as well as all the messages being sent out by the emperor to the court. So if the Dou clan ever wanted to blind the emperor's eyes or deafen his ears to any bad reports about them or other matters, Dou Xian would just simply withhold these reports or misplace them. And indeed, he did plenty of that, as just Yuan himself would be personally responsible for over 10 reports reporting the misdeeds of the Dou clan during the first 5 years of their reign as regents. But none of these reports ever made it to the desk of the emperor, even as Yuan reportedly threatened time and time again to retire by removing his uniform at court as he argued with the Dou clan. Then we have Dou Xian's younger brother, Dou Du, who was made into a Zhonglang Jiang, who is essentially the captain of the Imperial Palace Guards. Then there are 2 younger brothers, Dou Jing and Dou Gui were made into 中常侍, which is a post responsible for supervising the eunuchs within the imperial palace. And altogether, the four brothers, alongside their sister, suffocated the young emperor, as they controlled his access to the court, had full control of his guards, and even supervised the eunuchs that will come into contact with him. On top of all this, Dou Xian also recommended his friend Deng Biao to become the grand tutor. And if there was any policies he wanted to push to the emperor, he would simply ask Deng Biao, who is now the emperor's teacher, to suggest it to the emperor, then follow it up by asking his sister, the empress dowager, to pressure the emperor to follow through with the policy. And very soon, the Dou clan essentially ran the country unopposed, minus a few obstacles like Yuan, who was simply too old and respected for them to really touch. But while Yuan was deemed untouchable, his secretaries who wrote the reports for him were not, as Dou Xian had trained assassins and thugs who constantly harassed Yuan's office in an attempt to bully them into submission. But Yuan would stand tall until Father Time finally did him in on March 14th in the year 92. Luckily for his family and the Eastern Han Dynasty, a few short months after Yuan's death, the Dou clan would finally be overthrown by the emperor himself with the help of none other than the eunuchs, who is going to stand up time and time again going forward for the emperor in face of these powerful regents. And out of remembrance for Yuan, his oldest son, Yuan Shang, was named to become a visory position at court before eventually being promoted to lieutenant of the chariot. And as we move toward this generation following Yuan, his oldest son here, Yuan Shang, will not be the one to bring farther glory to the family, as the difficult conditions of working under the Dou clan regime squandered most of Yuan Shang's prime years in politics. Instead, it will be his two younger brothers, Yuan Jing and Yuan Chang, who will build upon their father's legacy. First off, Yuan Jing, being the second son, was afforded the opportunity to leave home during the Dou clan's regime, as it was considered unfilial pious for the oldest son to leave home while the parents are still alive, as it was their primary duty as the firstborn to take care of the family, especially the elders. But the same rules did not apply for younger sons. Therefore, during the height of the Dou clan's power grab, Yuan Jing was afforded the opportunity to become administrator of the Shu commandery in the faraway land of the Yi province. And that was pretty much as far away from the capital as you can get, as Yuan probably wanted to keep at least one branch of his line alive in case the Dou clan moved fully against him. And Yuan Jing was a decent administrator, but the cruel nature of politics at court had turned him off from government, as he soon turned to the old family tradition of studying the Book of Change, much like his great-grandfather. And before long, he would resign from his post, and instead of returning to the capital to live a semi-luxurious life under his father's roof, he opted for the mountains in the south, as he became a hermit in a place that still bears his name today, where he will become a famous scholar hermit. And in case you're confused by this term hermit, you can think of them very similarly to Henry David Thoreau and his Walden Pond, where by living in nature and contemplating life away from the temptation and corruptions of society, you can reach semi-enlightenment. And Yuan Jing was very true to his cause, as even after he became famous for his hermitage, there were countless offers thrown at him by the courts asking him to return to government with promises of high posts. But he turned them all down, as he chose this secluded life for the rest of his day. But his fame did bring a great benefit to his sons, who alongside their mother did not go live with their crazy dad in the mountains, as they stayed with their grandfather back in the capital. And we'll see in the next episode how their father's hermitage will bring them immense political capital, as they would come to dominate the Eastern Han politics for years to come. Now lastly, Yuan's youngest son, Yuan Chang, would luck out the most in this generation, as he too was a Book of Change scholar, And since he was relatively young, he was made into a study mate for the then Crown Prince Liu Zhao before he ascended to become an emperor. Now, with the Dou clan gone and Liu Zhao officially in power, this study mate of his is going to see a massive rise in power himself, as he will eventually go from many court positions and even some generalship to becoming the administrator of Dong, to becoming a grand tutor, and then finally as one of the 9 ministers holding the position of Minister Herald, which is basically Secretary of States, before finally rising to the position of Grand Excellency in the year 116, continuing the family tradition of having at least one member reaching the Grand Excellency post in this 4 golden generations of the Yuan clan of Runan. And with this appointment here, we're also going to be wrapping up our episode, as we'll return next time to see how the next few generations will continue this trend. So hopefully you all enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!